Good afternoon and welcome to you all to the Maine Masterclass, brought to you by the Maine Group. I'm Meeta, Sahni, for those of you who don't know us. I am the CEO and owner of the Maine Group, and I am joined by our Head of Recruitment, Carly Stevens. Hi, Carly.
Hi, Meeta. Hello, everybody.
Just while we're waiting for everyone to join and get settled, we are going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So again, I'm sure for those of you who are our regulars, you know that we try to keep this session very much a 30 to 40 minute session. We know you give up your time, especially over lunchtime, to hopefully glean some really useful information in a short space of time that you can take back to your business world and apply straight away. So Carly and I like to make this an interactive session. So you'll see on the right, we have a chat box. Today is all about thriving in a remote world. We're going to talk to you a bit about the different areas we're going to cover. And I know, Carly, these have come straight from you, actually, haven't they? And really what you've been picking up are the challenges for organizations out there. So please give us your thoughts, any questions, any opinions. We've also got a poll going. So the poll is asking today, how have the recent lockdown announcement affected your workforce? And gosh, already the trend is towards increased mental health challenges at 40%, and productivity issues also at 40%, with the remainder at 20% being management challenges. Carly, what do you make of that?
I can't say I'm surprised, to be honest. That really lines up with the conversations we're having with our network at the moment.
Tell me why you felt that. So the three areas we're going to cover are how to continue to manage the well-being and mental health of your team when they're working remotely. We all know that it's World Mental Health Day on the 10th of October. So this all kind of aligns very well, because obviously the recent lockdown announcements have really, not surprisingly, pulled the rug out from under us, even though it shouldn't be a surprise. We're then talking about hiring remotely, and then we're talking about onboarding new employees or a flexible workforce remotely. So tell me where your thoughts came from to make these our headings and our topics for today.
Absolutely. Well, I think with the recent announcements that people are still being asked to work from home where they can, we now know that remote working is going to be here to stay for some time in some form or another. And that's prompted so many conversations within my network about the whole remote working piece. But the three key areas that keep coming up time and again are mental health challenges for the workforce when working remotely and how we can best look after them. And the other two things that keep coming up are we really need to grow our workforce, but we're worried about being able to do that remotely, both from a hiring and an onboarding perspective.
Yeah, I think especially the first time, 7 months ago, when we were pulled into lockdown, it felt almost like the world was stopping and everyone was just poised to see what will happen next. This time that hasn't really happened, has it? It feels like everybody wants to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a definite sort of feeling that people just want to carry on. And I think the surprise element is less this time. But some of the challenges around mental health that are coming up for people are early. With the first lockdown, obviously, we were in spring, we went into summer, and that's an easier time generally for people's mental health. I think this time around, we are going into winter, and that can have a big effect on people's mental health anyway. People sometimes suffer from seasonal affective disorder. Sometimes the shorter days have an impact on people. And even the ability to go out for some fresh air or meet up with people is a bit harder in the winter. So I think that's being a challenge for a lot of people we're speaking to.
Yeah, I'd agree wholeheartedly. We, us as a business ourselves, and also when speaking to our business community, a lot spoke about starting to do a day in the office, having some team meetups, trying to get some personal face-to-face time in, even if people were meeting locally for a coffee, just to start to build some of that real sort of human touch element. And it's been quite surprising, because a lot of people might have even forgotten what it feels like to be in the office, and for all those natural flows of conversation, the water cooler moments, things that actually lift you, just aren't there when working from home. So adding that and the fact that potentially everything may slow down again, to then the seasonal challenges, we're definitely in for a ride. And I believe they're saying 6 months of this is yet to come.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they're saying. We can expect this to be for at least 6 months. So I think you're right. I think it is, and a lot of people had a taste of going back in, starting to collegiate with their colleagues again. And a lot of people have said to me how much they were really enjoying even just 1 day a week. And then to have that pulled away from them, I think a lot of people are struggling with a bit.
Yeah. So, well, look, I think we should get into our topics, because they're pretty meaty conversations to have, and really relevant to the areas that we are hearing about as being a challenge. The poll is leveling out. Would you believe a third with mental health challenges, a third with productivity challenges, and a third with management challenges? So that hopefully means that what we're talking about today is going to be useful. We don't envy anyone who's having to manage their workforce remotely. I think initially everyone was just grateful that they could still have a role and be safe and work. But it's really started to creak, hasn't it? And I think for us, we did a big drive for mental awareness. We did some training. A lot of our clients purchased mental first aider training. What are you finding organisations have done to help the mental well-being of their people over the last few months?
That's such a good question. And I think even before the pandemic, organisations are getting really good at looking out for these challenges. Like you say, a lot of organisations have put mental health first aiders in place, and a lot of organisations are trying to make it a less taboo topic than it used to be. So, let's talk about mental health. Let's have that as part of the dialogue so that people don't feel like they can't come forward and talk about things.
Yeah, there's that phrase, isn't there? Make sure that you're regularly checking in with your people rather than checking up on them. Check in with them. Don't make people feel that they are being micromanaged, but actually help them feel like they are being empowered and lifted to be able to achieve their role, effectively from home.
Exactly.
We found that to be a winning way to embrace and support each other from afar.
I think that's been really important, that check-in rather than check-up on, making people feel supported during these times. I mean, one of the stats that I saw, which was really fascinating, was that 1 in 5 people have been taking a day off sick regularly for stress-related reasons. But actually what was interesting about that stat was 90% of people had cited a different reason, and they said it was something else, which actually it shows that these stats don't even tell the half of the story when it comes to mental health and workplace stress.
Yeah. And we know that actually the statistics for these days off and reporting of mental unwellness is only on the rise. In fact, they say that it's doubled during the pandemic time, which again it just has to be taken into consideration from every organisation, not just from a duty of care, but also from a productivity perspective, because they're inversely proportional. If people are taking days off for stress, they're not saying it's stress. How is a company supposed to actually know what to how to prepare for that? So we've had some ideas from doing surveys with our network and finding out what else is going on out there with businesses and what they're putting in place. So first and foremost, the check-in rather than check-up is a really, really positive approach to have in general with the mental well-being of your people. Secondly, I've spoken to some of our clients who literally do weekly surveys with their people on different subjects. So maybe week 1 would be, how are you finding your workload? Week 2, maybe, are you and your manager seeing eye to eye? Week 3 might be, how are you finding the Zoom meetings? Are you managing them well? Are you finding them overwhelming? But literally each week will bring another bit of information that heads of department, heads of business, HR can then utilize to think about what structure they put in place, what support they put in place going forward. And really, we've got to stop it being a taboo where people say it's something else when it's stress or mental health challenges, right? So if we ask people to check in daily and say, we send a, login, and below the login, it might say something like, how are you doing out of 5 today? Or it could be the sad phase, neutral, happy, ecstatic phase, just some way of capturing the mood of the room, the mood of the team, the mood of the organization.
Exactly. It's about taking the temperature, and you might find that there are certain trends, and if there are a lot of people experiencing negative feelings at the same time, it might be something that you can step in and look at and change. I think what's really key here is just asking the question. There's absolutely nothing in employment law that states that you can't ask someone if they're okay, and the more you open up that dialogue and have conversations with people, it really helps. Sometimes if someone is struggling, and as you as the manager or the HR manager just ask the question, are you okay? That can really open the floodgates, and it can mean that this person will just really happily start to talk about it. Yeah. Or it might not open the floodgates. They might still not be ready to talk about it, but at least they know that you care, and then maybe next time they'll feel comfortable mentioning it.
Yeah, very much so. And we've just had a comment from Jenny. Jenny mentions mental well-being in the early days of the pandemic and working remotely was good. But as remote working has drawn on, this has caused some resilience issues. We need to do something now to ensure we are okay, as 1 year of working from home will be difficult. Well said, Jenny. We agree. And you've hit the nail on the head with the word resilience. Actually, resilience and supporting mental health and creating mental wealth in our workforce go hand in hand. And one of the training areas that we have been offering out and that have been super popular are around resilience. So if you feel that you'd like us to do another Monday masterclass on resilience, then please let us know in the chat box. You can message privately and you can message publicly. So if you don't want your messages to be seen by everyone, you can put a private message up. If you want it to be seen by everyone, you can put a public message up too. So please share with us and let us know your thoughts, because really these sessions are designed to help you and help your organizations really manage the challenges that are out there at the moment.
Exactly. I think Jenny's absolutely right. It really does feel like the novelty of remote working is starting to wear off for a lot of people. And I think 6 months is a certain amount of time that people can cope with something for. But when you look at a whole 12-month period, it does seem a lot longer. And we definitely need to be putting these things in place as businesses.
Very much so. I mean, they speak of of home working being something that's here to stay. But I think we have to be really clear. No stats have said that people want to work from home permanently. What they say is that these are the stats currently, 62% of senior executives and 58% of entry-level workers, so this is the full span, want to divide their time between home and the workplace. That's from BCO, which is a British Council for Offices. So that's what they're finding at the moment. Does that come as a surprise at all, Carl, that it's a mix?
It's exactly mirroring the conversations that I'm having with my network at the moment. I think a lot of people really like some of the flexibility that remote working affords, the extra headspace that you get, and that sort of thing has been really popular. But definitely most people who we're speaking to are saying that they would ideally have a balance of office working and remote working long term.
Yeah, and we agree. We know that, we don't know how long this pandemic, we're saying 6 months. God, I hate to even imagine that it would be longer, but I think we know that the new normal or the new world that will evolve even after this 6 months isn't going to be one that we knew from before. So we're seeing the benefits of home working. We're seeing the massive challenges of that at this time. And Janice has said that you'd really appreciate some resilience training. And Crystal also said that a further session on resilience would be great. She missed the first one and feels that the next 6 months of working at home are going to be challenging. So, Carly, we will put a promise out to everyone that we will do a short intro into the resilience training that we offer on a broader perspective. But hopefully, even from that resilience training session, you will be able to take away some really useful gems that you can start using in your workspace. And if you find that useful, we do training on Zoom. We do training face-to-face where appropriate. And we also do pre-recorded videos, which you can use with all of your people all of the time. So we're just trying to share really key tools that are going to help organizations get back to thriving in this time.
Absolutely. It costs thousands if you've got an employee who's having mental health challenges that go unchecked. And also, obviously, you want a happy workforce. You want to have good business productivity and happy team members. So a lot of sometimes we hear that people think it's a bit fluffy to ask their team about their mental health and if they're okay. But actually, if you just look at the stats, then you realise that if you deal with these things early on, it is a really great way to prevent it rather than dealing with the issues after the event.
Yeah, very much so. And the only other point I would make that I've noticed is around confidence, because people that I would have thought were confident and resilient have actually said that in this time they've lost their confidence. And actually something we haven't mentioned is that, yes, we have to look after our people, but we've got to make sure that the managers and the leaders of organizations are okay, because they have the really tough job of having broad shoulders, of being able to lead their people in a decisive way. But also, they have to be able to show authenticity. So don't forget that there should be a specific approach of supporting managers, leaders of people, leaders of organizations, and check in with them. And if they're not doing it for themselves, if anyone is in a position to recommend that, please do, because they certainly have, like the people working from home, they too are facing challenges. And if they're not all right, then it's far less likely that the business will be all right. So it's got to start from the top, hasn't it?
Absolutely. And to see in the poll that a third of businesses are finding that management challenges are, one of the biggest issues, it does just go to show that it's got to start there.
One of the great stories I heard actually from the beginning of lockdown was how managers who probably at that time weren't doing as much of the day job, but actually taking the time to check in with their people on a how you doing, not rather than how's the work going, and also doing Zoom meetings, the Zoom drink, not the meetings for meeting's sake, but, drinks on a Friday or a quiz night. And I know we went through a bit of fatigue in that. I think everyone did. But I definitely think with the potential of there being a lockdown for longer, some of those structures, even if it's monthly, would be great to bring back in, wouldn't they?
Yeah, absolutely right. I think when you find that when you are in the office, that pastoral care for your team members, it's easier because you can see people every day and you can pick up on things. Remotely, it's a lot harder. And also, I think team members find it harder to come forward remotely as well. So our job is therefore to probe a bit more and put things in place so we can really just do those checks.
Yeah. Things that we take for granted, things we notice just aren't there remotely. And it's true, what we said right at the beginning of this segment, organizations are trying to get back to thriving. So naturally, the pressure on everyone is going to be that little bit heightened compared to the first time when the pressure was about survival and just getting through every day, not knowing. Now we kind of know what it's going to feel like, and we've got the job to do.
Exactly. And one real positive that people are forgetting, I know I'd forgotten this, I suddenly thought, oh no, second lockdown, and all of that stress and trauma came back from the first time round. But actually this time the schools are open, which is a real positive, and that is hopefully going to make it a lot easier for people to handle remote working this time around.
Yeah, very true. And it's with more certainty that we can start to create more structure, and by building resilience, we can support our people to manage when there is doubt or confusion. But ultimately, the more clarity you can bring as an organization for your people to know it's okay to not be okay and to speak about it, the more they will work with you, and management challenges, productivity challenges will become a partnership approach to solutions rather than a them versus us. That's what we want to overcome.
Exactly. And actually, that's what a lot of organisations are doing. They're doing mental health days where everybody at all levels gets together, gets it all out in the open, talks about what things can have an impact. And it really just takes away that taboo, and it makes it part of the conversation.
Absolutely. So the 3 areas of training that Carly and I think would be worth considering for your organisation is the resilience training. That is definitely key, and we promised to do a session on that in one of our masterclasses. Secondly is all around working together and how you align as a team. So making sure that you've got mental well-being at the top of the agenda, making sure people can sit together in mental wealth training, as I like to call it, and also really thinking about how people can be productive remotely. So helping them understand what good looks like and training them to be able to be effective in their roles. Those are areas that, we feel that can be really helpful for you to manage better business relationships with your teams and improve productivity.
Yeah, that can really take away a lot of stress, showing people what good looks like, giving them a framework so they know at least, even if they are struggling, that they can achieve their goals in a certain way.
Yeah. So, Carly, the next topic we were going to talk about is all around hiring remotely, recruiting people when you're all based at home, but you need new talent in your world. Now, some would say, but everyone's going through redundancies at the moment. Who's hiring? Well, we're at the rock face of that, aren't we? Tell me what you're finding is going on out there.
Absolutely. And it's pretty much split. So I'm talking to so many organisations at the moment, about 50% of them are looking to hire and actually grow their workforce. And about 50% of them have maybe put it on pause where they're dealing with potentially restructures and things like that. But that's a huge amount of businesses that are still hiring and having to do it remotely. Now, some organisations are set up for it and they've done remote hiring forever. And these are the more sort of tech and forward thinking companies. But some have had to sit and put in place systems overnight to ensure that they can hire remotely.
Yeah, well, we've invested in some tech of our own, even though we've been using Zoom and that all works very well. We've actually invested in some online video tech that specifically helps our clients to recruit and do the whole process through a video interface program where you can record, where you can look back, where you can share that with your internal managers. And it just means that the time taken to run an interview process is diminished, and the process is slicker and more organised.
Exactly. There's some amazing rec tech out there. And as Meeta said, what we've got is really fantastic for us because we're doing a huge volume, obviously, of recruitment. But I don't panic. I think don't worry if you haven't got a big budget for rec tech, if you're only doing a few amount of hires, you can actually do the whole process really well using Zoom, even using FaceTime if you have to do an interview. So depending on your size and your setup, you don't need to invest in huge tech if you don't need it to have really good processes.
Yeah, very much so. And Carl, tell me about, well, actually, one of the bits of good news I was going to talk about actually is the fact that some of the reasons people are recruiting in a lot of the roles that we're getting on at the moment are maternity. So a lot of organizations are looking at flexible working. Obviously, maternity always comes in as a contract, 9 to 12 months usually. But organizations are using temps and contracts, aren't they, at the moment, Carl? Tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, there does seem to be a bit of a baby boom happening. So we're definitely seeing a lot of MAT contracts, but also generally organisations, and this usually happens when we're coming out of a downturn, they look at what flexible workforce they can employ when there is still maybe a bit of uncertainty. So a lot of organisations are looking to do fixed term contracts or even bring in temporary workers where they're not quite sure what their permanent hiring needs are going to be. And that's a really great way to access skills on a flexible basis.
That's really good to know. And there is such good talent available out there at the moment, isn't it?
Absolutely. So many amazing people that probably wouldn't be on the market in another world. So actually, it's a really good time to be really bringing some excellent talent into your world.
So what would your top tips be for hiring remotely, Carl?
So I think that first of all, look at the tech that you need and get what's right for you, but don't panic if you haven't got a big budget. You can do it without investing heavily. I think the next key thing is the process. So a remote hiring process really should mirror your usual hiring process as much as possible. So if you usually do 3 rounds, still do 3 rounds. If you usually get people to meet certain team members just to show how lovely and fun they are, still absolutely do that. If you maybe ask someone to do a presentation, 100% still do that. Ask them to do that on video as well. Try and mirror your process as much as you can remotely.
Yeah. So one of the areas that I put to you and when we were preparing for today was what about, showing them around the office? If it's all done remotely, how are we going to bring that element, the culture, the heartbeat of the organization? How can an organization, because I think this is more important than ever, if they don't have a tangible experience of the company, how would an organization bring that to life remotely?
You're right, Meeta, that's such a huge challenge. So this is really about the candidate attraction side, not so much about whether we can run a hiring process, but whether candidates want to come and work for us. And quite often candidates come in, they see the offices, they see how lovely and bright it is, they realise their gym's around the corner or their friend works nearby who they can have lunch with, they've got a good commute, whatever it is that people get from coming into the offices, we're obviously lacking in a remote hiring process. And it is a huge challenge. I think particularly now, candidates are really thinking twice about accepting an offer when they're leaving a company that's stable to go to a new role. And there's a bit more nervousness on behalf of the candidate about that. So this sort of thing is really important.
So a few of the ways that you can overcome that is to have a Why Work For Us video. That may have been one that you recorded before you went into lockdown. Most organisations have a Come and Work For Us video, or you can get somebody to go in and do almost like a walk around of your office. You can even suggest to the candidate, if you are going that way, do a dry run, go and see where we're based. We've got great offices in a great location, just to bring that all to life. So don't think that they can't interact. And also drive them to your social media page if you have one, because that, again, will help them have windows on your world, if you like, to get a bit of what the culture is like and what it feels like to work for your organisation.
Exactly. It all comes back to your employer brand and what your online employer brand is saying about you. And things like videos and photos of your team working and playing together. And I've seen some lovely ones pre-COVID, but also during the pandemic, and people are really sharing how they're engaging and how they're instilling that culture remotely. So that's really important. I think
really creative stuff going on, isn't there?
Yeah, there's so many creative things. Yeah. I think sometimes people are doing a video tour of the office, which is a really nice thing to do, because at the end of the day, if you're hiring someone at the moment, fingers crossed, hopefully they will be working in your office before too long, so they still want to see where they're going to be. And actually, a lot of people are choosing to do a final interview in the office. If your office is open and it is safe to do so from a socially distanced perspective, there's nothing wrong with making the final round in the office so people can try out the commute and they can see it. But the good thing about this is you can do every other bit of the process remotely so that you do cut down on social contact. And then if you want to, you can do the final round actually at the office.
Yeah, you talk about that, looking them in the eye, and even though you can do that to some extent on Zoom, many do just like that final, they won't be shaking hands, but looking each other in the eye around the office space and just sealing the seal of approval, if you like.
Exactly that. And I think things like, if sometimes people do a drinks round before they make an offer, do a Zoom drinks, get them to meet the team. Quite often a candidate says to us the reason they chose to take a role is because of such a great vibe they got from the team members, even once they're not working directly with necessarily. So don't cut out any of those steps. They'd normally come in, they get a warm greeting from reception. If they're going to miss out on that, get the receptionist to spend 5 minutes with them on one of the rounds, just to make sure that they get as much as they can to feel that they want to be part of your organisation.
Yeah, fantastic. So based on remote hiring and the strategy and the plan going well and the process going well, an organisation then has to think about the final stage of what we're going to talk about today, which is onboarding remotely. So give us your thoughts on that, Carly. We have some of our own experience on that, actually, don't we?
Absolutely. So this has been a real success story for so many of our clients, and I'm really, really proud actually of our network, because so many people have thought they wouldn't be able to do virtual onboarding, but they've done it, and they've done it brilliantly. And as you say, we've done it ourselves, so we're here to testify that it can work, and it can work really well. I actually think that the more structure you've got in your onboarding process, the better it lends itself to becoming an online system. And actually, some people have said it's even slicker doing it remotely, because you can schedule everything, get it all ordered in, and it works just as well.
Well, there are less disturbances at the moment, aren't there? It just seems as though you can be more focused when you're working remotely and on Zoom. Although I did put to you, again, when we were sort of preparing for today, that some organisations don't have a set induction process. What would they do in a scenario like this?
Yeah. I think that's a really good question, and something that we've been doing for people is helping them put induction programs in place. Because if you don't have an induction program, then it's much harder to do it remotely, and then people might feel a little bit lost. So you could talk to us about looking at putting in place a step-by-step induction program. That's something we've helped a lot of our clients with. I think the key is scheduling, getting lots of induction meetings with various different parties scheduled into the diary during that first week.
Yeah, it's everything from how the systems work, where we are on social media, getting their LinkedIn profile right, getting them to look and understand all of the marketing material that represents your organization. That way, they've got FaceTime with different members of the team. Sometimes they might hear the same thing from 3 or 4 different people, but the fact that it's 3 or 4 different people giving them consistent messages about your organization really reinforces that not only what they learned at interview is the fact, but also it's consistent throughout the organization. And that's really reassuring, because we're firm believers. Something we train here at the Maine Group, and what we have in our Masterclass series is about the first 100 days. So when you're onboarding somebody, those first 100 days are key. Mm-hmm. So often somebody can smash an interview, turn up on day one, and when they're remote, it's even harder for them to demonstrate all of the values that they say they're going to bring. And sometimes there's first day nerves, and the boss is thinking, oh, this doesn't seem like the person I interviewed, and the person's thinking, oh, I'm not sure if this is the company. So the more experience they can have hearing about the organizations from other people in the induction, the better. It really reinforces that, yes, this is the organization I signed up for.
Exactly. So it's little things like if part of your induction is the office manager doing a run through of the staff handbook, get that same person you would get to do it, but do it via Zoom, and they can share their screen. If part of your onboarding, a lot of people do a nice lunch with a buddy, for example, on the first day. And it's been really nice to see a lot of companies are sending a hamper or a Deliveroo on that first day, and the buddy will still have lunch with them, but on a Zoom or a Hangout. Again, trying to recreate what you would do in the office, but make these people feel special, just like you would on a normal first day.
That sounds good. It's about replicating, isn't it? And in terms of the checking in. Now, we spoke about checking in right at the beginning. I've got a question here about people saying when they have an induction, how do you check in without making them feel under pressure, especially when they're just starting a new role?
Absolutely, that's a great question. And so a lot of times with an onboarding program, people have an end of day check-in anyway. Sometimes it's the line manager who'll spend sometimes just 5 minutes with a new starter at the end of each day of their first week. I think the key here is remote onboarding is even more important to do that. And what we say is ask lots of questions at that sort of like end of day check-in remotely. And, you know, in a way, treat it like an interview. We want to really probe and ask questions about what their experience has been, how they're feeling, whether they've got everything they need. Make sure that they know they can ask questions. It does feel slightly different for a new starter not being in the office, and they don't want to be a bother. So that's why the end of day check-in should feel like it's for them, and it should really be to serve them rather than feeling like they're being checked up on. And if you work it into the induction schedule so it's there from the outset, there's no surprises, no one's wondering, oh, why am I having another meeting?
Exactly. And at the beginning, it can be more frequent. It can be more frequent or less frequent depending on the seniority. But again, just because somebody is senior, don't assume that they don't need those check-ins. If anything, they need to get to know your organization even faster so that they can then be good managers and good senior strategists or deliverers to a broader requirement. So make no assumptions that just because they're senior, they need less hand-holding. And it's actually empowering your people. And I think that's what an induction is, isn't it? It's giving them what is the DNA of the organization, what are the basics, things like a staff handbook, things like the do's and don'ts, you know, things that we all take for granted because we've been in the organization forever. And then make sure you offer question time. Say, look, you know, please ask questions, ask more times than once. It takes more in the onboarding, but they'll be onboarded faster and they'll start to add value faster as a result of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. I mean, some companies do a team onboarding. So if you're doing mass hiring and you've got a lot of people starting on the same day, that's a really nice thing that you can easily recreate on video, and you can get everyone to do a little introduction of themselves just like they would on a first day. So there's so many things that you can do to make people feel really warm and welcomed, and crucially that they've got all the information they need to get off to a good start.
Yeah, very much so. And we know that the fact that Marks and Spencer's put out today to come and get your Christmas food suggests that Christmas is on the horizon. Don't think we can keep up with everything going on out there, but your people will start thinking about Christmas. And I think it's really important to say that, you know, Christmas isn't cancelled. We will, as a team, do a Christmas get together, whether that's online, whether that's, you know, remote, whether that's so hopefully some lockdowns will be reduced, but let your people know that you are going to do something special together, and it will give everyone something to look forward to, which hopefully again will lift spirits and get us through these challenging and darker days, which we can make brighter.
Absolutely. Do you know, it's really key how much people look forward to the work Christmas party. It's a huge thing. It's a real bond, let your hair down, everyone's in good spirits. So if you can do something to mark Christmas with your team members, that will definitely go a long way. Yeah,
it'll have to be creative. And actually, what I would suggest is do follow Carly and I on LinkedIn. We very much share not only our thoughts, but we share what we hear from the business community as well. We'll start sharing ideas of Christmas and how organizations are planning to celebrate from a remote base, because I think that will be interesting information to share.
Absolutely. There's lots of creative ideas that we're hearing. So as Meeta says, follow us and we can share with you not just what we're doing, but what the wider network is doing as well.
Yeah, very much so. We at the Maine group have a masterclass of nearly 40 videos helping our clients to remotely recruit and then onboard and train and retain their people. So if you are interested in any of those, please do reach out and let us know. I think we're going to share one today. We're going to share the induction process with you as free complimentary video. So please have a look and please do give us your thoughts. And if there's anything else that you'd be interested in knowing about, then do let us know. And watch this space. We'll be bringing our introduction to resilience training to you very soon.
Absolutely. Just going back to that, Meeta, it occurred to me whilst we were preparing for today's session that I think some of the attract module of the masterclass is going to be so powerful when you're looking at remote hiring. People, you know, candidate attraction process is more important than ever. And so many of those modules have got a remote angle in mind, so they could be really useful for sure.
Yeah. Very much so. We're firm believers that if you have a plan, you will either be a little bit to the left or right of the outcome you expected. But if you have no plan, then the bets are off. You're not going to get the outcomes you want. So we're here to help you with that. We hope today's webinar has been useful to you. Carly, thank you so much for your input and expertise. Is there anything you'd like to share with us before we wind things up for today?
Just one other quick thing, actually. I think just it's important to note that there has been a temporary change to right to work checks, which means you can, during the pandemic, do online right to work checks, which has been really useful for so many clients because they have been doing remote hiring and then worrying about how they're going to do that piece. So that can be done remotely, and we can send the guidance notes on that as well.
It can. I think it literally is a hold your passport up and take a picture, isn't it?
You see the original via a scan, and then you actually on the video call ask them to hold it up, and you compare the two, and then compare the likeness, and then you do your usual checks as you usually would. But it's a great way to sort of cutting through the challenge of not being able to have people into the office.
Well, I hope that bit's here to stay.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people looking for that to stay. So fingers crossed.
Wonderful. Well, before we say goodbye, let's have a quick final look at the polls. So the question today has been, how have the recent lockdown announcements affected your workforce? Top is management challenges. So 37% of feedback has been management challenges. Increased mental health challenges and productivity both come in second with 25% each. And we're really pleased to say that 12% of our audience today have said that none of the above have been impacted. So that's really good to hear. We'd love to hear from you, hopefully in the feedback form, how you've achieved that, and we can share that with all of our business community. But thank you everyone for your input, your questions, your comments, and Carly, thanks for your insight and expertise. We really hope that your remote working starts to pick up and that you all are able to take a very positive and mentally wealthy workforce forward over these difficult times. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Meeta. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Cheers, love. Bye for now.